Welcome back. I've always had a fear of clowns, their painted faces hiding behind a veil of deceptive laughter. The following are 3 experiences that only serve to reinforce my fear, each more unsettling than the last. I hope sharing them might somehow free me from this irrational dread. The first encounter occurred when I was just 8. It was a sun-drenched Saturday, and the local circus had set up their tents overnight. There was a particular clown named Mr.Giggles who, despite his cheery demeanor, sent chills down my spine. He'd turn his painted face towards me, his unnaturally wide smile fixed in an eternal grin. As the day faded into twilight, I found myself alone, watching Mr. Giggles prepare for his act. He noticed me, his eyes locking onto mine. He gestured me over, and out of sheer childhood curiosity, I obliged. He whispered a joke in my ear, his breath smelling strangely metallic. He whispered, "Now why did the chicken join the circus?" Pausing in his own anticipation. "Because he wanted to be a comedian," he bellowed. The punchline was nonsensical, yet he erupted into hysterical laughter. But his eyes, they were as cold as ice. That night, I woke up to the sound of laughter echoing through the still house. My blood turned cold as I recognized Mr. Giggles' voice. I ran to my parents' room, but it was empty. Frantic, I looked out the window, and there, illuminated by the dim glow of the moon, was Mr. Giggles, his face eerily reflecting the lunar light. His laughter now seemed more of a challenge than amusement. As quickly as he'd appeared, he vanished. I never saw my parents again. The police never found any trace of them, and Mr. Giggles disappeared with the circus, leaving a town in fear and a boy orphaned. Years later, while studying in college, my friends and I visited an abandoned amusement park. Graffiti covered most of the rusting rides, but one stood out, an old-fashioned Ferris wheel with a grinning clown painted at its center. It was Mr. Giggles. Just as fear began to grip me, the Ferris wheel started turning, its rusty joints screaming against the silence. At the top sat Mr. Giggles, his wide grin gleaming under the pale moonlight, and he began laughing, that chilling, unforgettable laugh. We ran, but one of my friends, Tommy, tripped. When we returned, he was gone. The only sign of him was a single red clown's nose, just like the one Mr. Giggles wore, lying there on the ground. The final encounter happened just weeks ago. I had tried to escape my past, moving cities, changing my name. But one night as I returned home, I found a note pinned to my door. "Why did the chicken join the circus?" I recognized the handwriting, the childish scrawl that I had seen on that circus poster so many years ago. I looked up, and there, across the street, stood a figure bathed in shadow. A chilling whisper came from his wide grin. "Because he wanted to be a comedian." He stepped into the light, and I saw his face. It was Mr. Giggles, unchanged after all these years. His grin stretched across his face as he roared with laughter. Suddenly he was gone, leaving only the chilling echo of his laughter and a red clown's nose rolling to my feet. Every night since, I hear his laughter, and every morning I find a new joke, each punchline more nonsensical than the last. I don't know when Mr. Giggles will return, or who he'll take next, but I live every day in fear, waiting for the laughter to start again. In the realm of horror, the role of a clown is timeless, and the following narratives are tributes to that. 3 distinct experiences I've had with these painted jesters, forever etching an eerie phobia of clowns into my psyche. In my teenage years, I found myself in an antique store, a former carnival warehouse. A dollhouse drew my attention. Each room was meticulously detailed, but what chilled me to the bone was a small clown doll, eerily similar to a clown I had seen at a fair as a child. As I leaned closer, the doll's tiny hand moved. It raised a finger to its painted lips in a shushing gesture. Dismissing it as my imagination, I bought the dollhouse, curiosity piqued. That night, the muffled laughter of a distant clown haunted my dreams. Each morning I'd wake up to the doll in a new room, its shushing gesture becoming more insistent. My dreams grew more vivid, the laughter closer. One day the doll was gone. That night the laughter was not in my dreams, but coming from the basement. When I gathered the courage to investigate, I found the doll in the basement, seated on an old rocking chair that was my mother's. There was something distinctly unsettling about the way it sat there, motionless, its painted eyes glaring in the dim light. My encounter with a carousel in college is my second tale. One of the horses had been replaced with a clown figure, its face oddly reminiscent of the doll. Intrigued and terrified, I rode the carousel. As it spun faster, the world blurred, but the clown's face remained horrifyingly clear. Suddenly, I wasn't on the carousel anymore, but back in my room, standing in front of the dollhouse. I could hear laughter, louder than before, and turned around to see the clown from the carousel standing behind me. The room spun and I blacked out. I woke up on the carousel, alone. The clown figure was back in place, smiling at me. My friends later said I disappeared for a few hours, but for me it had felt like mere seconds. The third instance was when I moved to a new city, hoping to leave my past behind. But the past, it seems, was not done with me. I received a painting as a housewarming gift from an anonymous sender. It was a clown, its eyes seeming to follow me. In my dreams, I was back in the dollhouse, the painted clown guiding me through each room. Every night I'd wake up in a cold sweat to find the painting slightly altered. The clown's eyes bore into mine, and its finger raised to its lips in a shushing gesture. I live in fear of the laughter that accompanies my every night. Even now, as I record this, I can hear it echoing through the silence. I know it won't be long before the clown decides to pay another visit. As the laughter grows, I can only wonder, will I be next? There are some truths so deeply terrifying that they seep into the subconscious, imprinting lifelong fears. My phobia of clowns stems from 3 eerily interconnected incidents that trace back to one fateful carnival in my childhood. The first incident happened when I was just a boy. A roving carnival had come to our town, and like all kids, I was drawn to the vibrant sights and sounds. But it was the clown show that mesmerized me the most. Their exaggerated antics were amusing until one clown, the biggest of them all with a ghoulish grin, pulled me onto the stage. With a theatrical flourish, he announced he'd be performing a classic magic trick. From his giant, colorful hat, he claimed he would pull out a rabbit. The crowd cheered in anticipation as he reached into the hat, but what emerged wasn't the fluffy, white creature we expected. To our collective horror, the clown pulled out a mangled, bloodied rabbit. Gasps echoed around the arena. The sight of the lifeless creature sent me reeling, and I passed out right there on the stage. I woke up at home later, the image of the dead rabbit and the clown's maniacal laughter haunting my dreams. That was the day when laughter turned into a chilling reminder of the grotesque spectacle I had witnessed. The second incident was during my high school years. A classmate who fancied himself an artist sketched a clown in my yearbook. It was a jester with an unnaturally wide grin, eerily similar to the clown at the carnival. The night after receiving the yearbook, I was woken by a strange noise. I traced the source to the book, and to my horror, the sketched clown was no longer on the page. Instead, there was a message written in a shaky handwriting. "See you soon." I couldn't sleep after that. Every night was plagued by nightmares of painted faces and monstrous laughter. I started seeing the clown from the yearbook sketch everywhere, in my dreams, in the crowd, in my reflections. The third incident happened just recently. I moved into a new apartment hoping for a fresh start, but it seemed my past had a knack for catching up. One day I received a package. No sender's details, only a note that said, "From an old friend." Inside was a clown's red nose. The same night I heard a soft knock on my door. Peering through the peephole, I saw a sight that made my blood run cold. The carnival clown, his ghoulish grin still the same. As I backed away, his echoing laughter filled my apartment, and his parting words sent chills down my spine. "Can't wait to catch up, old friend." Now I live each day in dreadful anticipation, never knowing when the clown will return. The echoing laughter, the horrifying grins, they've become my living nightmare. The true terror of clowns isn't their painted faces or their tricks. It's their insidious ability to turn laughter and joy into a symphony of horror. Ever since I can remember, I've had a fascination with old, abandoned places. This fascination led me to a deserted theme park on the outskirts of town. The theme park had closed down decades ago, but remnants of its past lingered. Among the ruined rides and dilapidated attractions, one stood out, a weathered, eerie-looking funhouse named Jester's Den. As an urban explorer, this was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. With my flashlight in hand, I pushed open the creaky doors and stepped inside. Inside was a labyrinth of mirrors and old props. The fading colors of what once would have been a place of joy now felt menacing in the dim, flickering flashlight beam. Suddenly, I heard the faint, crackling sound of an old recording playing, echoing through the silent halls. "Welcome to Jester's Den, where laughter never dies." I followed the sound, which led me to a large room with a small stage. On the stage was an old mannequin dressed as a clown, its paint chipped away, revealing a leering grin beneath. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness. I fumbled with my flashlight, but it wouldn't turn back on. A cold breeze brushed past me, making me shiver. Then a spotlight turned on, illuminating the stage. The mannequin clown was no longer standing still. Its head was now turned towards me, the painted grin seeming wider. The old recording crackled to life again. And now, for the midnight show. The mannequin started moving, slowly at first, but then it became more animated. It began miming, as if trapped in an invisible box, then pulling on an invisible rope. Classic mime tricks. But there was something profoundly disturbing about its movements, and then it pointed at me and beckoned. I was rooted to the spot with fear. I watched in horror as it picked up a balloon, twisted it into a grotesque shape, and popped it. Suddenly the spotlight turned off. The room was plunged into pitch-black darkness. The chilling laughter of the mannequin echoed around me. The air turned cold and I felt a presence, a feeling of being watched. I could feel the mannequin clown close to me, its laughter growing louder and louder. When the light flickered back on, I found myself outside the funhouse. The door closed ominously behind me. I blinked, disoriented in the sudden brightness. My heart was still pounding from the terror that unfolded inside. And then from the funhouse, the speaker sputtered back to life. The chilling voice of the clown mannequin echoed out. "That's all for tonight's performance, but fear not. The best acts always make a comeback." He paused and his voice turned deeper. "The thrill of the chase is so much sweeter than the catch. See you in your dreams." My blood turned to ice at the veiled threat in his parting words. Every night I dread falling asleep, fearing I'll wake up back in that room, under the spotlight, in the never-ending midnight show of the Jester's Den. As his laughter faded into the night, I felt an icy shiver run down my spine. I quickly retreated, the imposing silhouette of the funhouse looming ominously behind me. I ran until I reached my car, parked far away from the eerie park. I scrambled in, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the keys. As I drove away, I could swear I heard a faint laughter riding the wind, a chilling reminder of the terror I'd experienced. Ever since that night, I've been living in a constant state of dread. It feels like I'm part of a never-ending midnight show, a plaything for the mannequin clown's entertainment. His parting words echo in my mind, a haunting reminder of that fateful night. The thrill of the chase is so much sweeter than the catch. See you in your dreams. I can only try to convince myself that day was just the twisted jest of some pranksters and not the beginning of a macabre reality. But the uncertainty is what terrifies me the most. Will the next midnight show begin tonight?